Do you have a video game you really love, that you have a personal connection to? Then I want to advise you to get into version and variant collecting. Version and variant collecting is probably the level up, the thing you do once you graduate from being a video game player to a video game collector, because there's not a lot going into it when it comes to getting a new experience, but you learn a lot about the games you have in your collection. Version, variant, what is that, and why version and variant collecting is probably the most fun you will have in the video game collecting hobby. We'll talk about that today. Now, what is a version? What is a variant? Many people use the two terms interchangeably, and the line between them blurs a lot when it comes to video games. Now, the definition for a variant is basically a different version of the game, but developed at the same time as the original, many times to make changes to certain demographics, to make it more attractive for certain people. One example for that would be the regional variants. For example, Space Channel 5 on the Dreamcast. Right here I have the Japanese version, I have the US version, or US variant to be precise, and the European variant. All of these are the same game, developed basically at the same time. There are not a lot of changes between them, and they were planned at the same time as well, with different changes made to adapt to the different target demographics. For example, of course, we have an English translation for the US version and a 50 Hz mode in the PAL version to make it compatible with our TVs that we had back in the day. When you have a game you really love, like me, Space Channel 5, I want to see the differences in packaging. For example, the Japanese version has this like shiny, sparkling cover, whereas the US version has this like 3D hologram thing. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but Ulala's dancing on this one. And of course, for the European packaging, we got the double case in blue. Otherwise, relatively boring for this one. So no special effect on this. When you really love a game, you want to experience it in all of its forms. And the regional variant collecting is certainly one way of doing it. You don't just get one presentation of your favorite game, you get multiple. Old school YouTube fans may remember the channel Chargeback Forward. And this is where I saw this brought to the extreme. Back then, Chargeback Forward, one of the guys was Big Mike, and he was a Resident Evil collector, and he wanted to collect all the regional variants for every Resident Evil game. That's where I first saw the concept brought to the extreme. Now, I wouldn't go that far. I would not get different cases with just different language text on it. I think that defeats the purpose of everything, of getting a different representation of your favorite game. However, if there is big regional variant differences, like different cases, different art styles, different marketing for the different games, I think that can really add to your collection and add to your love for your favorite game. I can tell you, I get more enjoyment out of owning Space Channel 5 3 different times on the Dreamcast than buying a random different Dreamcast game, because I love this game and I would rather have multiple variants of it. Now, a version is something that was not developed at the same time, but it came out later, for example, ported to a different console later on, or getting an updated version later on. One example of that would be Shenmue 2. I actually missed this one. Yeah, I haven't brought this out. Now, Shenmue 2 was first released on the Dreamcast. I have the European variant over here. And later on, it was ported to the Xbox as Shenmue 2. Now, with updated graphics, English voice acting, and so on. So this would not be a variant of the Dreamcast version. This is a different product developed later on. So original version, ported version for the Xbox for Shenmue 2. So that is the difference between a version and a variant. Versions get developed at the same time. Variants come later on. Versions come later on, variants get developed at the same time. Like, I get it confused all the time as well. Now, the line blurs, for example, with regional variants, as I talked about. Of course, the Japanese version often came out first. So technically, the US version would be a version of it because it came later on. One example for that is D2, one of my favorite Dreamcast games as well. The US version actually has another difficulty level. It's actually an upgrade to the original Japanese one. So I would classify that as both a variant and a version of the game. A US variant was planned, but they upgraded it. So, as I said, the line blurs at times. Don't get too hung up on what is a version, what is a variant. Just collect whatever feels right to you. And I want to talk to you about what is not a version and not a variant of the game. One of my favorite childhood games was Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life for the GameCube. Part of the Harvest Moon series, very cool game, originally released on the GameCube. And this one is, of course, a variant, the European variant of the Japanese original. Later on, it was ported to the PlayStation 2. Now, this is theoretically, like technically, a version of the game. It came out later on. It has bonus content. It's actually worse in every way except for content. Frame rate is halved and graphics quality is downgraded and everything. But this would be a version, a new version of the game, whereas the regional variants would be variants. Now, what could be classified as a variant or a version is the Another Wonderful Life version, where you play as a game. Basically the same game, some upgrades, so it would make it a version, but it's on the GameCube, so it's a variant as well. Maybe it was planned during development. I'm not sure. So you see, the line blurs. Don't think about it too much if it's a version or a variant. Now, something that is not a version of A Wonderful Life is Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. This is actually a remake. Remakes are completely different products. They are developed often from the ground up to imitate the original game or iterate on it. For example, with the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy they're making. Nobody would say that is a version of Final Fantasy VII. It is its own product. It's a reimagining, a remake of the entire concept of Final Fantasy VII. Same here, even though it's very close to the original, this is a remake and technically not a variant or a version of the original GameCube version. However, this has other variants for PlayStation 4, PC, actually PlayStation 5 this one only has, and Xbox Series S and X. So this has different variants, but it's not a version of the original game. Now, does it matter? No, not really. If you want to count the remake of A Wonderful Life as part of your Wonderful Life collection, hey, do that. But if you are really into one game, I would advise you, look out for different versions. Maybe there's a collector's edition that's pretty cool and interesting for you. Maybe there's regional variants. Maybe there's console versions of the game that add different content. And instead of just moving on to the next one, go to like different versions and variants of the game and enjoy the game to its fullest. Experience it on different consoles. Experience it in different packaging. Because every time I'm looking at my Japanese Space Channel 5, I'm overjoyed with this. I love this packaging and I love the like shiny cover and so on. If I only had my original European version of Space Channel 5, I would not feel that joy about this series. Every time I'm thinking of Space Channel 5, I'm thinking of the fantastic gameplay, the interesting story, the characters, but I'm also thinking of Ooh La La dancing on the US cover. I'm also thinking about the shiny cover of the Japanese version. It really deepens and heightens your appreciation for your favorite game series, your favorite game. So if you are ready to graduate from being a video game player to being a video game collector, I would advise you check out different versions, check it out on different consoles, on different console generations. Note down the differences and find an appreciation for the ongoing development of a video game or of a video game series. Now tell me in the comments, are you a version collector? Are you a variant collector? Are you into graded games, for example, where the right version of the game, like the first print version of a game, is the most sought after and the only one you're looking for? Tell me in the comments, because this is an area in gaming I don't see explored a lot, but in my opinion, it's probably the most fun you will have collecting video games for your collection. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.